All right. Welcome to another episode of the Close-Up, a part of Orlando Magic HQ. I'm your host, Stephen Cameron. Today's a fun one. We're going to continue that conversation we had with Keith Smith of Spot Track and the Front Office Show. He is a great guest. We're in the middle of a deep conversation about the Orlando Magic offseason, talking all things salary cap, player contracts, potential offseason moves that the Magic could have. At the end of this episode, you're going to hear we directly address listener questions as well. It's a really fun conversation that we're in, and we hope you enjoy it. Make sure you check the show description, whether you're listening on a podcast platform or YouTube, if you want to get more information on Keith Smith and where his content can be found, because he's a great resource during this time of the year. The links are in the description right below. And he's great. He is breaking down this information so digestible for all of us to understand at a deeper level and how the Magic can operate this offseason. So we hope you're enjoying the conversation. Thank you for supporting the show. And again, if you'd like to support us a little bit more, you're more than welcome to check out our Patreon program for a small monthly subscription. It helps us operate and it gets you some extra content, gets you involved in our community group chat, and some other benefits during the season, like discounted tickets and stuff like that. Obviously, we're in the off season right now for the Magic, so no discounted tickets this summer. But when the season comes around, we'll still have that as an option for you. Thank you so much for joining, and please like and subscribe as you can, and enjoy the show. When you look at the Magic roster and we see improvement that needs to happen, do you think, put your GM cap on for a second, do you think they're looking like, hey, we're going to go after and try and improve the starting unit? Or do you think their focus is more trying to improve the second unit? Because I kind of don't see them trying to do both this summer. I kind of lend more towards the second unit, and that's where they're going to try and really bolster things up, improve their 6th, 7th type players off the bench. But in your opinion, how do you think they're going to attack improving this roster from a strategic standpoint?
Yeah, I think for sure you have 3 starting spots filled with health with Banchero, Wagner, and Suggs. And so that's forward, a wing, and a guard. Now, the question that I think you have to ask if you're the Magic, kind of 2 semi-related questions. One, can Jalen Suggs be a point guard on offense? We know he can be on defense. He can defend any guard in the league. We're not. And related, all right, if he can be, is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope going to be the guy we saw in March, who was the guy again and was hitting his shots and all that stuff? Or is he going to be the guy we saw for large chunks of the regular season and in the playoffs, where he wasn't really making shots? And if you believe, all right, we found something, we can get it figured out, it'll get sorted. All right, well, now that's 4 of 5 starting spots. Somebody will be the starting center, whether that's Carter, returns and retains that spot, or Batadze gets elevated, or whatever it may be. So, all right, so we feel pretty good about that. Then you go about, let's go improve the bench. If your thought process is, Suggs is more of a 2 on the offensive end, and we need a primary playmaker creator, or at least somebody who can ease the burden on Banchero and Wagner to have to kind of create everything more than Suggs can. The idea would be Jalen Suggs is a really overqualified 4th offensive creator. Let's put him in that spot, and boy, we lifted our offense big time. I think that's kind of the way they need to go, because of where this team wants to go. 45, 50 win regular season and making it to the playoffs can't be the goal anymore.
Sure.
The goal has to be win playoff series. They're not going to win playoff series with guys on the floor that can't ease the offensive burden on Banchero and Wagner. You saw it. Boston's better equipped than a lot of teams, but you saw it even in the Cleveland series a year prior. They just start bending everything towards those 2 guys, and it just gets really hard for them to get out of their own way to create offense, because there's only so much those guys can do without getting a little crazy with the ball or with taking bad shots or whatever. So that becomes a situation, man, we got to really create something. So I think they're going to do something to try to get somebody in who can help. I've eased off. It probably even said it to you in years past. I don't want anybody coming in that's going to take the ball out of Banchero and Wagner's hands too much. I still don't want it to be somebody who's going to come in and dribble the life out of the clock with 20 of 24 seconds. But I want somebody who can ease their burden, somebody you can throw it to. And then the nice thing is, then you're like, all right, like I said, Suggs is now a very overqualified fourth option. And we're going to play every key minute of every game with two of those four guys on the floor, and we're going to feel really good about what we can do on the offensive end. Because again, the defense is going to be there. I'm not worried about that.
I've always kind of looked at this offseason thinking they might be comfortable rolling the starters back one more year and see healthy Suggs next to healthy Paolo and Franz, and just another one more, at least up to the deadline, see how it looks with KCP. I've always kind of thought this team might look at the bench where their guard units have just been a mess and see if they can find like a super six man that is very like overqualified to be a six man, but that's the role he's going to play in Orlando. So that person can also, like, if KCP or Jalen Suggs just doesn't have it, they can like bring him in to pair with one or the other to kind of be that player that is also playing with the starters, maybe closing games. If Jalen Suggs is out, can step up into, for an injury, because he's injury prone. We're not hiding anything there anymore. They can jump up and be that starter level. That's kind of always the mindset I've operated under. But I also think the way you've talked about addressing the starting unit has a lot of validity to it. Validity? A lot of value in what you just said. Thank you. I can't speak today. I need another cup of coffee.
Right. It's early for you.
Yeah. But there's a lot more. I think there's a lot of power in what you said as well in that type of approach. And so it's going to be really interesting. I mean, I guess in theory, they really went balls to the wall. They could do both, but we'll see how aggressive they get. I don't think they do that. I think they make one really solid move and an addition somehow. Like, we'll see maybe two-ish new key rotation players to the Magic, and then they will probably say, let's see how that goes into the season. And then if we need to, we can make an adjustment at the deadline or the following season, right? I don't think it has to all be fixed this offseason. I think they have to make a good step forward and then continue to make adjustments going forward. That's kind of my approach there.
I'm with you. One thing I'll say kind of in addition to that is I don't know that they're going to go like you said, go, fully crazy and be like, we're bringing in, 2-3 new guys and, we're doing all this stuff. And we added a point guard and a big and, a shooter. Like that's probably not realistic, just simply because that gets difficult to pull off.
Yeah.
Like it's
very
even
challenging.
If you have the ability to do it, that starts to be like, we just used all of our draft capital. We used all of our tradable contracts. And now this better work, because otherwise, guess what? None of those people have jobs anymore, right? They're all getting fired because it didn't work.
It's the Rob Hannigan move.
A little bit, yeah. And then I think the other piece is I've seen some people like, they got to go get a, the name that gets thrown out a lot is go get Trae Young, go get LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
You're not. If you do that, you're trading either Wagner or Suggs. One, because you're going to have to. Like, those teams aren't going to give them up without getting really good players back. It's not going to be enough to be like, here's Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter and Jonathan Isaac and one first-round pick or anything. This is where I like to say, just because it works in the trade machine doesn't make it a good trade.
Right.
Like there's, none of those trade machines evaluate whether you made a good trade or not. They're just telling you, is it legal?
Has it worked?
So my thing is, if you do something like that, the reason why you have to give up one of those two guys, the Magic a year from now are not positioned to have 3 guys on the roster making $30 to $40 million a piece and using their entire salary cap on that. They would be so deep into the second. They would be immediately having the conversations we're having about Boston today.
Yeah.
Which is, how are they going to start moving off some of this salary and all that? And that's not where they're going to be. You got to look lower. That doesn't mean you're talking, you mentioned Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones would be great if they brought him in as, a backup on a minimum deal. Sure. Why not? Like, he's better than Corey Joseph, I think. In, general terms. So yeah, let's go. And a lot of what will determine how they fill out is going to be, what do they have to give up in trades? If they're doing a 2 or 3 for 1 trade, now all of a sudden it's, well, Cole Anthony went in the trade. Now we need a backup guard, right? So now we go out and get whoever this may be, or we traded away one of the centers. So now we need to go get another center. The nice thing is there's all kinds of optionality for the Magic this summer. There's pretty much any direction you want to go, you can go, because the three building blocks all play very good complementary roles to each other and have versatility that they can play different stuff. You could even see a world where it's like, you know what, we're going to move Franz more into a second guard role next to Suggs or whoever, and we're going to go with another wing because we had a chance to land another really good wing shooter, and we'll just be huge across the board. Sure, why not? Right, as long as you think you can hold up defending opposing guards, yeah, let's go. Like, that's the cool thing is pretty much everybody is, other than Paolo, who's now he's kind of the traditional four
Yeah,
in the NBA.
he's kind of fallen
Everybody
there.
else is, you can kind of mix and match a lot of ways, and that's even fine with Paulo because he's just so good.
And Paulo, short stints, he can fill in at center. He can play the
Yeah,
three a little
yeah,
bit. But
yeah.
for the majority of the game, he's that power forward. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I kind of go back to any type of players they're going to bring in, whether it's draft or trade, they're going to keep some of their philosophies the same, as far as like they're not going to be they're going to probably want some size. Like, they're probably not looking to go bring in a 6-foot point guard. They are probably still going to value positional versatility to an extent. And they're still going to you can't be a complete zero on defense. You gotta be able to at least hold your own in some capacity, right? You don't have to be as good as Jalen Suggs or KCP, but you can't be a complete zero. That's kind of my thing. Keith, we've been talking for almost an hour. I want to do a couple quick hit fan questions. We don't have to go super in depth with these, but I do want to hit them because we have a couple good ones. Some of them we might skip because we've, kind of already addressed it in the conversation. So listeners, if you've given a question, that is why we probably are not addressing it directly. The first one, let's not go too deep in this. Do you have anyone in mind, either, trade or free agency, that you think is just like a great fit for the Magic?
Yeah, I think Kobe White with the Bulls is somebody I would be looking at getting. He's kind of the perfect guard that we were talking about, where he can scale his role up or down depending on what you need. He's a great mix with Suggs in the backcourt because both of them can defend either guard positions. No one's ever going to put Kobe White in an all defense team, but he can hold his own.
Yep.
He's got enough size to switch. He can really shoot. I would love to see that. He's somebody I would consider giving up a pick or two,
Absolutely,
plus the matching salary. Now, your one challenge is, if you do it, you have to be really certain you can re-sign him a year from now, because he's going to be a free agent and his contract is too small to be reasonably extendable. He's going to want more money than what the Bulls or the Magic could extend him for. But if the Bulls hit a point where it's like, all right, we got to reset a little bit here, yeah, I would look at a guy like Kobe White. That's the guy who kind of comes immediately to mind. For me, that's like the perfect fit, and I would be willing to give up some good stuff for. And if people haven't been paying attention, Kobe White just is coming off two really good seasons in a row. But this last season was really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. He's that kind of player that you go get and can fill in and be a starter level next to Jalen Suggs. And that's just a killer combo. I'm going to address it kind of more from like the second unit. I think Colin Sexton is someone that could be a decent target. Sure. He's, he can play that. He's probably best as a 6-man, can fill in as a spot starter. Pretty reasonable size contract. He would probably take a reasonable extension. He's not someone that's going to go get $30-40 million on his next deal. Is not the most effective defender, but has moments where he can be a good, like, he tries and puts efforts there. And I think in a better system, like under Mosley, could be more effective there. And a good shooter. That's kind of like, I'm not going to say that's my perfect offseason, but that's someone on my list, as well as Kobe White, like you said.
Let me throw just three more quick names at you. All similar-ish kind of thought process with all of these guys. Could either start, could come off the bench. Obviously, Anthony Simon's name is going to be forever linked to the Magic until he either retires or plays for the team.
Yep.
A lot of that just because he's a hometown kid. But I don't hate it. I don't like it as much as some of the others, just because he makes a lot of money and he's not a very good defender.
Yeah.
But he would really, barring he gets hit with the Magic curse, he should fix a lot of the shooting, scoring issues, and he's a pretty good playmaker, can play on-off ball. So I don't hate the idea of going to get him.
I like him.
I would at least make a call to Oklahoma City and say, where you at on Isaiah Joe? Only because that roster is really stuffed full. And I would at least say, well, what are you thinking on a guy like him? Just again, another really good shooter on a really cost effective contract. Then I have a lot of people, I'm sure you've been asked the same thing. A lot of people have asked, what about Jordan Poole?
Yeah.
Like, in what I like to tell people is Jordan Poole, I know a lot of people are like, because they see the highlights of him doing silly, stupid stuff. But Jordan Poole became a more serious player over the last year plus with the Wizards, where it's like, all right, he's actually, there's still the occasional bonehead thing in there, but for the most part, he's played pretty serious basketball. He's gotten back to being the guy we all kind of liked with the Warriors before his role got a little bigger than it probably should have been. And that's another one where that's going to cost you a little bit to go get him. But, it's in terms of depth, you're going to have to trade 2-3 guys to get him. But I don't hate that idea. And then a free agent target I would look at would be Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah.
Just because fits really solid as like you could bring him in as your third guard. You probably don't want to start him because you don't want him to get hurt, but play him 20 minutes a night in the regular season, scale his role up in the playoffs if you need to, and move from there.
All names that I'm also like monitoring and thinking about and changing my opinion about every 5 minutes, let's just say. No, I like a lot of those. Next question kind of fits into this because it's like, targeting free agents. Is it, and I actually meant to ask this earlier. Right now, the Magic are sitting at partial MLE with, like we said, I think it was like 5 million, I said.
Yeah.
Is it possible for them to open that up and go sign someone at a higher level with the MLE or a higher version of the MLE this summer? This person specifically is asking, I'm curious if it's possible or probable for the Magic to drop below the tax line to use the non-tax payer MLE before making any moves. Sign a guy like Trent Jr., then make moves after. Like, can you just address the MLE situation for a second?
Yeah, I'll leave the player out of it because I think that would be a massive overpay. But
sure, I agree.
Yeah, the situation, that's where I talked about don't be surprised if they decline Mo Wagner's team option with the idea of we're going to bring him back, whatever fits in later, right? We're going to bring him back at 5 million or whatever it may be. I think that's where you need to really look at for the Magic. It is Gary Harris would need to go. Maybe Houston, we'll see. That one's a little closer. Joseph would have to, you just can't have him on the books at 3 million. Probably goes anyway, just roster spot there. And then clearly, like we've been talking about, you could make a trade that frees up even more money. But just the simple version is you basically let everybody who's on those contracts go. And then you start the reset process around, all right, we dipped enough. We can use the non-taxpayer MLE to go get whoever we think is our best fit. But then we have to be very cautious how we're going to fill out, the rest of the roster. But they're not trying to dance around the apron with 7 roster spots to fill. It's like dance around the apron with like 2 roster spots to fill, which is a pretty good spot to be in.
That makes sense. Okay, next question is about Paolo and his next contract. We know he's going to get a max extension this year. If he makes All-NBA next year, does that kick him into the super max, or what year does he have to make an All-NBA team to kind of hit that 35%, 30% of the, cause it's his rookie extension. So yeah, it's 30%. When does he have to make that team to have that kick into 30% instead of 25%?
It'd be next season. So what they did with Franz Wagner, which I think is pretty instructional, they put the conditional language in his contract where it was either going to be if he made All-NBA but didn't make, I think it was first team, he was going to get like 28.5 instead of the full 30. That's become more common. Evan Mobley had that as well.
Okay.
He obviously, by winning Defensive Player of the Year, he got to the full 30. With Paolo, though, Paolo is enough of a step ahead of Franz, and I think even Mobley, too, where it's probably just going to be, if you make any All-NBA team, any of the 3, it's an automatic 30% max for him, and that's where I expect that to go. And then if he's healthy, I think he'll be right there in the mix for All-NBA. It just comes down to, is he going to be healthy? Because that's the big thing. There were a lot of guys who it's like, well, that guy, is an All-NBA level guy, but they didn't hit the game's played requirement.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the big thing to watch there. But and just for anybody wondering, that would see him at a starting salary that projects at $51 million in his in 26-27.
Yeah, not next year, but the
year,
year after.
yeah, not next year, but the year after. So he jumped from 15 to 51, and then that's when you start having some serious conversations about where we going, because now him, Paulo, Franz, and Suggs would be on the books for about 180, 90 million together,
which would be a good amount, like 65% of the team's cap space, something like that.
Yeah, in that range. Yeah, probably even a little bit higher.
Yeah. Because I mean, with Paulo and Franz alone, you're at 55 ish. Then you add Jalen Suggs. Yeah, you're paying a lot for three guys, so you got to ask some questions there. Okay, last one. Let me just take a quick look. This is a fun one. Granted, your Boston Celtics are one of these teams that kind of fit into this. Are there any second apron casualty teams that the Magic could potentially work with to help them improve their roster while helping the Boston Celtics or any other team kind of in that range get into a more flexible position?
Yeah, I mean, they're one of them, right? You mentioned it. Minnesota, Phoenix, those are the other teams that are like pretty sure to be, dancing around that second apron. There's just not great matches with Minnesota, and I don't know that Minnesota is desperate to move anybody. Phoenix, unless the Magic really want to get involved in Kevin Durant, which I don't think they do. I don't think that makes sense. They're probably not. That's probably not a match. Now, Boston gets more interesting. There's a world where you could say Drew Holiday would be great for these guys to take them to the next level. The challenge is what we just talked about. A year from now, when Paolo and all those guys, and then you add Holiday in at $30 million too, that gets a little trickier. Now, I personally think the Magic could, if they really wanted to, Kristaps Porzingis is a guy who could make some sense for them. He's on an expiring contract. They could get him by giving up just a couple guys without causing themselves major issues. Go get him, and they've got enough depth where if he misses 40 games, it's not the end of the world. We can get by. And obviously he would help a lot with the floor spacing and everything else that they need from that position. I just don't know that's the direction they're going to go. I think they're going to do a far more cost-effective guy who is someone that they can have for the next 3-4 years. Holiday probably makes a little too much, but if it's somebody in the 20 to 25 million a year range, that's probably a lot more reasonable than Holiday's making, in the mid 30s.
For the next couple of years too. Yeah. It's a pretty long contract.
Unless Cleveland gets really into, we decided we have to move Darius Garland, and all indications they aren't there yet. You're not. I mean, maybe you could be like, hey, what are you thinking on Max Strus? Like, that's somebody that would obviously help Orlando. If it was like, we want to clear enough room to be able to bring back Ty Jerome, and we feel like, Strus is somebody we could move. Yeah, you could get maybe somebody like him, but they'll be aggressive in looking at stuff like that. It'll just, I don't know. There's some fun constructions you can get into where, like, if they're like, we think Austin Reeves would be really good here. It's like, we can actually send back size to the Lakers if, Reeves would have to get there. But, then you get into, all right, well, now what are we sending back? And the Lakers going to be too weak in the backcourt, around Luka. What does that look like? So, but there are, fun, constructions you could look at with them as well.
Absolutely. Well, Keith, we've been talking for an hour and 11 minutes. I really appreciate the time. I actually think this might be one of our shorter calls that we've had together, because I think we're closer to like 120 in times past, maybe 115. But this is great. Really enjoy the conversation.
We didn't have to break down the draft.
We didn't have to break down the draft. No. We
didn't have to get deep into draft prospects in the top 10.
We didn't have to talk about that and different trade scenarios with draft picks. We did okay. We kept this pretty solid. And a lot of really good content for the Magic listeners to get into. So thanks again for joining the show. I really appreciate it. Let all the listeners know where they can find your work. And again, I'll pin that in the post. I'll say it in the opening, but it'll be in the show descriptions as well on YouTube or the podcast feed. So let them know where they can find you, Keith.
Yeah, if you like this stuff and you want it on a bigger scale, league-wide, Spot Track, all my written work. I'm in the middle of team off-season previews. Magic will maybe next week, but it might be the week after, which is a good thing because we go in order of elimination. So that means they weren't a lottery team and they weren't out immediately. In the playing tournament. But those are going up. We just started our free agent rankings. Could be of interest to Magic fans if you're thinking, who could be available around the non-taxpayer or the taxpayer mid-level or even a minimum type signing. Those are up. The point guards went up. We'll get the other positions up over the course of the next few weeks. Here's we go. And then NBA front office show, Trevor Lane and I. Right now, we're 3 to 5 days a week. It depends on how much news is out there, minimum 3 days. But we do a lot of transaction talk and things like that there. And then I appreciated mentioning off the jump, Sports Business Classroom. If anybody's really interested, we're running low on spots. There's, I think, maybe like 2-3-ish spots left to sign up for to join us out in Las Vegas this summer. But if you go and you look it up, sportsbusinessclassroom.com, or just Google Sports Business Classroom, it'll pop up. And if they think it's a great program for you, I'll let them know you heard from NBA front office. And then that helps us out a little bit too, on knowing what's driving the students to sign up. But yeah, that's everything.
Magic fans, definitely check out Spot Track. Like, my web browser just auto populates it for me now because I go there so often, and it will help you really understand if you want more visuals to what you like maybe listen to on the podcast version. You'll understand what we were talking about just by going to the Magic homepage and clicking 25-26 season. It'll make a great adjustment for you. And then we're in transaction season, we're in off season mode. You got to be tuned in to the front office show. I listen to it throughout the year, but you definitely want to be tuned in pretty regularly during trade deadline time and then the off season when new contracts are coming around, free agent signings are happening, trades. Like, this is the time to definitely not want to miss that content. So Keith, once again, thanks for stopping by, and Magic fans, thanks for tuning in. Let's go Magic.